It's crazy to think that The Thousand Year Door has finally been re-released. Back when I spoke about this game, I commented on how this was a game which more people needed to experience, and less than a year later, the remake was announced. Some people were surprised that this game was being remade, considering that Paper Mario 1 has not been remade yet. However, there is a good reason why they did so. The original Paper Mario has been re-released many times. The Thousand Year Door has never been re-released, a fact that rings true for a large amount of the GameCube library. Sure, the Pikmin, Metroid, and Zelda games have been re-released along with Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Sunshine, and a few other titles as part of the new Play Control line. However, that just scratches the surface of the first-party titles Nintendo made during this era. So many iconic GameCube titles have never been re-released, and I think that is mainly due to the fact that we never got a GameCube Virtual Console. I mean, Nintendo is not going to remake or remaster Melee, Double Dash, or the Mario Party games on platforms with games which succeeded them. That would make little sense. However, it still feels odd when looking through legacy software on Nintendo systems. Leaving out the GameCube games creates a weird gap in the timeline of releases, and makes the original games fairly expensive. The weirdness continues when you realize that some GameCube titles have actually been re-released multiple times. The Wii versions of Pikmin 1, 2, Metroid Prime 1 and 2, and Donkey Kong's Jungle Beat all had their versions re-released on the Wii U eShop. In fact, both the Pikmin games along with Metroid Prime 1 were released on the Nintendo Switch last year, being based on the Wii versions again. All this says to me is that Nintendo wants to re-release more GameCube games, but they are not willing to make them available via emulation. If I had to make a guess as to why we never got a GameCube Virtual Console, I'd say it's because the GameCube games support an input method that the Wii U games do not have. Remember that the GameCube controller has analog shoulder buttons? Well, aside from this and the Wii Classic controller, Nintendo never actively used these things, and the shoulder buttons on both the Wii U and Nintendo Switch controllers use digital inputs. My guess is that most first-party GameCube games are built around the analog shoulder buttons, and because of that, the use of digital inputs would cause these games to not function properly. We can see with Super Mario Sunshine that they had to tweak the controls to accommodate for the lack of analog input, which does support this theory. If this is something Nintendo would have to do for every single GameCube game they want to re-release, that would explain why we never got a GameCube Virtual Console. After all, it would take a fair amount of effort to tweak the controls in every GameCube game. This would also explain why the Wii versions of the Pikmin and Metroid Prime games were re-released on the Wii U, because that required very little effort. The Wii U already supports Wii games after all. I'm somewhat convinced at this point that Nintendo has a policy where they do not want to re-release legacy titles if they have to make major changes to the games, such as the controls. I mean, that definitely was the reason why DS games came to Wii U, considering they share all the same input methods, so no effort needed to go into making these games work on Wii U. Applying this view to the GameCube games, it is quite clear why there are still many GameCube games that haven't been re-released. However, my theory does have a few hitches which I'm fully aware of. Firstly, consider that many GameCube games do not actively use the shoulder buttons. For example, Pokemon Colosseum and Kirby Air Ride both primarily use the A button for inputs. Another issue is, of course, the fact that some Virtual Console games do have a fair amount of effort put into them. We can see that with Street Fighter 2 for the Sega Mega Drive, released on the Wii Virtual Console, plus several NES Light Gun games were adapted to work on the Wii U via the Wii Remote, which probably took some effort to figure out. There may be other factors that contribute to why GameCube re-releases are so infrequent, but I would not be surprised if the change in input method was a factor in doing so. I do hope in future that we get more GameCube re-releases. I would love to try the GameCube Mario Parties, Kirby Air Ride, and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, just to name a few. Well, one thing I think for certain is that if Nintendo's next console has analog shoulder buttons, there will be no excuse for them not to re-release GameCube games on it.